So here we are again. We're working with Michael Singer's book, Living Untethered. And in particular, we're working with heart and emotion today. He's got several chapters on the heart in the book. A lot of it, what we're working with, is taken from there, and then we'll kind of go from there into the inquiry. So he talks about emotions as the sensation of experiencing a change in our energy, and that we don't notice the inner feelings until they change. So I thought that was kind of an interesting observation about emotion. So if you're walking along and you're just kind of going along through your day and you feel the way you usually feel, it's something that we put out of our mind. One thing I know about the nervous system too, and the way the brain scans for danger, is it notices if there's something different. So when I was living out in southern Alberta, I would walk by the window and I'd look out onto the landscape. We were in the country, and something would catch my eye, and it was something different. And then if I stopped and really looked, I'd notice there was some kind of wildlife there, maybe a moose or sometimes a bear. So the scanning that we do, our brain has this really efficient way of only bringing to our attention things that are new. So that came to mind when I was reading about that our emotions are kind of in the background until something changes. And then we only comment on them when they're extreme. So we might be commenting on them to ourselves or to someone else. Like, I feel really good today, or I feel really something else. And of course, we all know that emotions can be really extreme or really gentle. So he's talking about it doesn't take much effort to notice what we feel, but it takes a lot of effort to handle what we notice. I think we could all agree on that as well. So the emotions are sensitive vibrations that emanate from the heart. And we know the habits of the mind. We work a lot with thoughts, and thoughts can be like that too, but thoughts can also be pretty intractable. Like, we really get going on a ruminating or on a catastrophic stream of thought. Emotions are a little bit more sensitive and they shift more easily, and we have much less control over emotion. We have more control over the mind than we do over the feelings that come and go. And then other thing that often happens is that we think about our feelings, and then there's this other step of actually feeling the sensations and feeling what we feel. So this vibration of emotion comes into the heart, and then it rises into the mind, and the mind starts telling us all about it. What the mind says when the heart's closed isn't us. It's not you. It's just the mind expressing the state of the closed heart. So let's sit with that for a moment. See what comes to mind when you reflect on that. I think we've all experienced jealous thoughts or kind of nasty thoughts about somebody else when the heart is closed. And so he's saying, don't mistake that for who you are. That's just the heart is closed, and then the mind is sharing what that feels like or the thoughts that come from that. So that might be one way that we could offer ourselves some kindness too, is that those kinds of thoughts that come into the mind, they're very helpful to notice and work with, but they're not really who we are. It's a state of a closed heart that generates that kind of thought. And then, of course, the thought that the heart opens and closes all the time, that one of the things that he's really recommending, and that we all know as well, is to have some ability to not get too caught up in the thoughts, to be able to be aware of what's happening in our thoughts. One of the ways that we do that is we notice who is it that's feeling these emotional shifts. Let's take a moment to sit with that. I am aware that I hear or see my thoughts, so words and images, and that I feel my emotions. Notice what you're feeling right now, and notice that you're noticing it. That we're witnessing what's here. We might be witnessing thoughts. If we put our attention into our heart area, into the chest, we would be witnessing whatever sensations we're experiencing. And then as we're working with this, we're always working with attraction and aversion. That's a very common theme in spiritual teachings, to not chase after what we want to hold on to, and to not push away what we don't want. So much of that has to do with our nervous system, our vigilance, our neuroception, feeling of safety or threat. So let's pause here again. What makes your heart open and close? When we feel love, we feel the heart opens, we feel that beautiful flow of energy, and we project the source of that love outside of ourselves most often. So when the other person helps us feel heart opening, then we feel love for them. And if they make us feel kind of closed, then we have the reverse. So even though the stimulus might be somebody else, the action of opening and closing the heart is something that we're doing. Our heart is doing that. It's not the other person. So when we project the source of this open heartedness to someone else, we get this narrow kind of range of what we can tolerate because we want to have the heart open. We want to be around those people that help us keep the heart open. And that also can leave us quite vulnerable to manipulation. When we try to possess what helps our hearts open, and we try to protect ourselves from what causes it to close, that can cause suffering for us as well. So now we get back into samskaras. So samskaras are the imprints of our experience. So if we've had an experience that causes our heart to close, we end up with a blockage. And it's like anything else that reminds us of that. And our brain is very good at this associating. I associate this with this, with this, with this. And so anything that's similar, it might be somebody's voice in a store, reminds us. We're not consciously being reminded of it necessarily, but we might stiffen up because it reminds us of someone who used to yell at us. So we have a lot of these unfinished energy patterns, he says, as the samskaras. And when that happens, the Shakti, the energy that flows through all of us all of the time, can't rise above the heart because we have these activated blockages. We experience this opening and the closing of the heart. And one of the reasons I'm really interested in doing inquiry around this is because then it gives us more knowledge about what it is that causes us to open and close. And we can bring that out of the subconscious up into our awareness, not necessarily into the mind, into the thought stream, but into our awareness. What is it that causes these fluctuations? When we have the heart opening and closing, we have that fluctuation in the energy flow, then our thoughts change, then we often will get hardened down into something that we want to avoid, or we're kind of chasing after the heart opening experiences. So he actually has this little diagram in the book of like a T joint. And so if the energy is blocked completely, and I thought that was very interesting, when we have almost a complete blockage of the heart, we just don't really feel anything. And we have all of these things coming in, thoughts in the mind, emotions, our Shakti or Chi, our energy, and all of the things coming in from the world. And it all passes through the heart. So if our heart is blocked completely, we just feel kind of, we might describe that as I'm in my head. I have that kind of numbness. We don't really feel unless it's quite extreme. And then when it's blocked above the heart, then the energy flows out through the heart center. And that's when we really connect whatever stimulated the opening experience with a person, with whoever stimulated that. And we're kind of going after that instead of, if we have the energy channels open, it will just flow up and down, and we'll actually be more connected with the people that are opening our hearts and with other people as well. But we also have a more agency around that. We're not just kind of taken over by these things. We have more awareness. We're able to let the energy flow. This is not an easy or simple fix, obviously. This is something we've all been working on and with for a long time. But I like the way that he explains it is either blocked, partially, or fully open. And that explains a lot of what's going on. Energy will always try to find a way around the blockages. And so that's our moods, our attractions, our repulsions are dependent on our past, on these samskaras, these unfinished business. And as we reach more clarity and we have more openness, other people don't. We're not as reactive to other people as we used to be. Sometimes we see it in a really clear way, like one certain person that we have to be around or that, we're around right now really makes us get into reactivity. And yet, when we're, say, better rested, we have more resources, we're not as reactive to that. So we can really see how this clarity of the mind, emotion, the whole mind body affects us and how it changes. There's this kind of flow of the heart is opening and closing. What is it that's stimulating the opening and closing as we start to release and resolve some of those blockages, then we have more access to that open flow. And then we come back into this awareness that we have many different blockages and many experiences of being blocked and opened. And there's only one witnessing consciousness. That we're not the activity in the heart and we're not the activity in the mind. That is our personal experience. We are having those experiences personally. And we're more than that. We have the witness and then we have consciousness itself, that this is all happening and that we're witnessing it happening in consciousness. So those are words that are, we need to kind of operationalize words like witnessing consciousness. So let's do an inquiry. Before we get too far into it, just a reminder that if you find that you're getting activated, you can always do some tapping on your forehead, open your eyes, look around. We're working with things that might close the heart. So we need to be aware that we might need to use some practices or tools to work with that. So bring to mind something that creates an experience of your heart closing. Usually that's pretty easy to do. And it might be a strong experience. It might be not so strong. But try to do, just in a short inquiry like this, just bring to mind something that you can kind of work with. Something has a bit of juice, but maybe not all the juice. And then as you're doing that, notice the sensations in your heart. So in your chest, what does it feel like as you bring that to mind? There's words, images. What are the sensations in your chest area? Sometimes we describe a feeling of constriction or tightness or heaviness. Sometimes it might be like heat. We'll often get some kind of sensation above the heart as well in the throat area. So we're remaining aware of the sensations. And you might be aware of what is it that's causing the sensations. So it might be traumatic memories and associations. It might just be that also that you're working with somebody who's really difficult to be with. So if you're in the presence of somebody who's showing contempt for you or something that's difficult, that anybody would find difficult, it's not necessarily that it's from your past, although there's probably things that are making that memories, associations that are making that more intense. It could be that it's landing on core deficiency beliefs. This person makes me feel like I'm stupid, or this person makes me feel like I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. They make me feel bad about myself. So those could be some of the things that are creating or activating these blockages. From awareness as a witness, notice the sensations in your chest. Let yourself see the associations that might be there. You might notice a face, voice. And these are hard situations to be in. So continue to offer yourself kindness. Just like you would for someone else who's suffering, offer yourself loving kindness. And for a while, another few minutes, let's just hold both of those. So we're holding the experience of being blocked or closed hearted. We're noticing what the details of that are. What is it that makes this so difficult? Continue to notice your breath. Then let's move into activating an open heart. We're going to let our focus shift from the blockages, tracing the samskaras, let that go. So you might want to do some tapping on your forehead. You could put, if you have intrusive, kind of intense images, you might open your eyes, put them in a frame on the other side of the room. Look at the space on the outside, take your eyes around that a couple times each direction. The one thing that we know through experience is that these things aren't static. They might grab onto us a little bit, but then we can use those tools like tapping or tracing to come back into awareness of this moment and what else is here. For a minute, just offer yourself that loving kindness. Put your hand on your heart if you want. It's a very unpleasant situation when we are activated into those kinds of blockages. Our heart closes. We might go into traumatic memory or core deficiency beliefs. There's a lot more to us than those experiences and those beliefs. Bringing yourself back to that awareness. Let whatever it was that activated you move to the background and let your heart expand a little bit, open a bit. And notice, what does that feel like? So it might feel like a deep breath, relaxing your body. And just doing that for 3 or 4 minutes isn't going to change or deactivate a samskara completely. So this is something we'll have to go back to. But even just for a few minutes, we can notice quite a difference. Whatever it is you might say or offer yourself, this is a difficult situation. Of course, you feel this way. And now I'm coming back into noticing my breath, letting my chest soften. You might move your body around a bit. Notice there's some kind of obvious changes and there's some subtle energy flows too. Let your heart soften.